Welcome back to Classic Motion Stories. Today, we're diving into Rashomon, a legendary Japanese film released in 1950. Directed by Akira Kurosawa, a true master of Japanese cinema, the film features brilliant performances from Toshiro Mifune, Machiko, Masayuki Mori, and Takashi Shimura. With a remarkable 98% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, Rashomon stands as a near-perfect cinematic achievement. Widely regarded as one of the greatest films ever made, it continues to captivate audiences with its profound storytelling. So, without further delay, let's jump right into the plot of this timeless classic. The story begins with a scene of heavy rain pouring down, accompanied by the opening credits listing the film's crew. Next, we are introduced to two men taking shelter from the rain under the ruins of Rashomon, the city gate. One is a woodcutter, and the other is a priest. Throughout the scene, the woodcutter keeps saying, "I don't understand," over and over. Before long, a third man runs to the gate, seeking refuge from the rain. Hearing the woodcutter's repeated muttering, the newcomer becomes curious. He approaches the woodcutter and asks, "What don't you understand?" The woodcutter replies that he just heard a strange story. So strange that even the priest admits he has never encountered anything like it. Intrigued, the newcomer asks them to tell him the story. The priest explains that they just witnessed the events unfold at a trial they attended. He even admits that after hearing the story, he feels like he might lose faith in humanity. As the rain continues, the newcomer gathers some wood from the ruins and breaks it to start a fire. The woodcutter then urges him to listen to the story, hoping that maybe the newcomer has answers to make sense of it. The woodcutter begins, "3 days ago, I went to the mountains to collect firewood. Along the way, I found a woman's hat. A bit further down the path, I discovered a samurai's hat, and not long after, I saw a freshly used rope, possibly for tying someone up. Finally, I spotted a charm lying on the ground. But just as I was about to grab it, I stumbled upon the lifeless body of a samurai lying nearby." The woodcutter begins. Frightened, the woodcutter ran to the police to report what he had found. 3 days later, he was called to testify at the trial. He admitted that he was the first to discover the body but saw no sword or other weapons at the scene. The priest, who also attended the trial, shared what he had witnessed. He recalled seeing the samurai and his wife traveling through the mountains before the murder occurred. At the trial, another man testified that he had captured Tajomaru, a notorious mad bandit in the area. The bandit was caught 2 days before the trial, lying in pain by the riverbank. The police found a bow, arrows, and a horse, belonging to the dead samurai, in his possession. The man claimed that Tajomaru had fallen off the horse, which he had stolen from the samurai. However, Tajomaru denied stealing it. He insisted that he was simply riding the horse when he stopped to drink from a spring because of thirst. Tajomaru also claimed that there was a venomous snake near the spring, and after drinking the water he became poisoned and suffered severe stomach pain. The scene shifts back to the trial, where Tajomaru continues his story. He admits that when the man found him by the river, he was in agony, writhing in pain. Eventually, Tajomaru confesses that he did, in fact, kill the samurai. He proceeds to recount the incident in vivid detail. 3 days earlier, he encountered the samurai and his wife while resting along the road. The moment he laid eyes on the woman, he was captivated by her beauty. Overcome with desire, Tajomaru decided to follow them. The samurai grew suspicious of him, but Tajomaru tried to earn his trust by pretending he had found a valuable sword near some ruins. His story piqued the samurai's interest, and the couple decided to stay behind by the riverside while the samurai followed Tajomaru to check on the sword. As they walked, Tajomaru suddenly ambushed the samurai from behind. With the husband out of the way, Tajomaru rushed back to where the samurai's wife waited. He told her that her husband was in distress and convinced her to follow him. On the way, her hat got snagged in a tree, but she continued running toward her husband's location. When they arrived, the woman was horrified to find her husband tied up and helpless. Furious, she attacked Tajomaru with a precious dagger she carried. However, Tajomaru managed to overpower her and ultimately subdued her. He then admits to raping the samurai's wife, though he insists he had no intention of killing the samurai at first. But as he was about to leave, the woman stopped him. She demanded that one of the two men, her husband or Tajomaru, had to die. She could not live with two people knowing what had happened to her. She vowed to leave with whoever survived. Tajomaru untied the samurai, and the two men fought fiercely. Tajomaru described the samurai as a formidable opponent, one of the finest fighters he had ever faced. Despite the samurai's skills, Tajomaru eventually managed to corner him and deliver the fatal blow. After killing the samurai, Tajomaru claimed that the woman fled in terror. He figured she had been overwhelmed by the violence of the fight and ran away in fear. Tajomaru admitted to stealing the samurai's sword and selling it to buy alcohol. However, he denied ever seeing the woman's pearl-handled dagger. The scene returns to Rashomon Gate. The newcomer comments that Tajomaru was well known for his exploits with women. Curious, he asks what happened to the samurai's wife. The priest then reveals that the wife did come forward at the trial. She had been hiding in a temple until the police found her. The woodcutter interjects, insisting that both Tajomaru's story and the wife's account were full of lies. The newcomer dismisses the woodcutter's objection, saying that it doesn't matter whether the stories are true as long as they're entertaining. He then asks the priest to tell him the wife's version of the events. According to the wife's testimony, after Tajomaru raped her, he mocked her husband and laughed loudly before walking away. Left alone with her husband, the wife cried in shame over what had happened. However, her husband said nothing. He simply stared at her in silence, his expression cold and distant. There was no anger in his eyes, nor was there sadness. Only a look of disgust. Unable to bear the way her husband looked at her, the wife pulled out her precious dagger and cut the ropes binding him. She then handed him the dagger, begging him to kill her to erase the shame. But the samurai remained motionless, continuing to look at her with the same expression of contempt. The wife pleaded with him to stop looking at her like that, but he didn't respond. Overwhelmed with despair, she said she fainted. When she awoke, she found her husband dead, the dagger buried deep in his chest. In Rashomon, a newcomer grows more confused the longer he listens to the story. Things take an even stranger turn when a priest reveals that the deceased samurai also testified at the trial. The samurai was able to attend the trial through a medium, possessing a person to tell his version of the events. According to the samurai's story, after Tajomaru raped his wife, the bandit asked her to leave with him and abandon her husband. Surprisingly, the wife agreed, saying she would follow Tajomaru wherever he went. However, she then insisted that Tajamaru kill her husband, as she felt guilty being claimed by two men. Tajamaru was shocked and angered by her request. In response, Tajamaru stomped on the wife and gave the samurai a choice: either save her or kill her. But just as he was speaking, the wife ran away, and Tajamaru chased after her, leaving the samurai tied up alone. When Tajamaru returned, having failed to catch the wife, he released the samurai and left. The samurai, devastated by everything that had happened, wept bitterly. Finally, he took his wife's precious dagger and committed suicide. He explained that after he died, someone pulled the dagger from his body, though the samurai never revealed who that person was. Back at the gate, the woodcutter, one of the witnesses, suddenly claims that all three versions, Tajamaru's, the wife's, and the samurai's, are lies. He insists that there was no dagger involved and that the samurai was killed by a sword instead. The newcomer and the priest are shocked by this revelation. The newcomer confronts the woodcutter, accusing him of knowing more than he's letting on. Finally, the woodcutter confesses that he did not stumble upon the samurai's dead body by accident. Instead, he witnessed the entire event, but withheld the truth to avoid getting involved in the trial. In the woodcutter's version, after the rape, Tajamaru begged the wife for forgiveness and even asked her to marry him, promising to give up his life as a bandit. The wife, however, said she could not decide alone. She took the dagger and cut her husband free, then demanded that the two men fight each other to resolve the situation. When Tajamaru moved to attack, the samurai refused to fight, saying he no longer cared for his wife. He even told her she should kill herself, now that she had been with two men. Both the wife and Tajamaru were stunned. Tajamaru decided to leave, but the wife, enraged, provoked them both by calling them cowards. She taunted the samurai, saying he should be ashamed for not protecting her or killing the bandit who had violated her. She then mocked Tajamaru, saying she had wanted to run away with him because he seemed strong enough to free her from her dull life. But now she realized he was just as weak as her husband. Infuriated, the two men finally fought. However, the duel was nothing like Tajamaru's earlier account. Both men fought clumsily, stumbling over their own feet, too scared to strike properly. In the end, Tajamaru won by sheer luck. Even so, he hesitated to deliver the final blow. The wife fled in fear while the exhausted Tajamaru killed the samurai. Tajamaru failed to catch the fleeing woman, so he returned to the samurai's body, untied him, and left. In Rashomon, the newcomer laughs after hearing the final version of the story. It amuses him that the two supposed warriors were nothing more than cowards, too afraid to fight each other. As the rain begins to lighten, the three men, the newcomer, the priest, and the woodcutter, suddenly hear the sound of a baby crying. They follow the sound and discover an abandoned baby. The newcomer grabs the baby's kimono and amulet, but the woodcutter scolds him for stealing from a helpless infant. The newcomer fires back, accusing the woodcutter of hiding the truth at the trial for his own selfish reasons. He reveals that the woodcutter must have been the one who took the valuable dagger from the samurai's wife. The newcomer argues that everyone in the world acts out of self-interest, and he leaves, taking the baby's kimono and amulet with him. Left behind, The priest and the woodcutter stand in silence with the baby as the rain slowly stops. The woodcutter tries to take the baby from the priest, but the priest refuses. He has lost faith in humanity, believing that everyone in the world is selfish, including the woodcutter. The woodcutter then confesses that he already has 6 children, and raising one more wouldn't make much of a difference. Hearing this, the priest apologizes for suspecting the woodcutter of intending to sell the baby. The woodcutter admits he feels ashamed of his actions but understands why the priest would doubt him, given everything they've experienced. In the end, the priest entrusts the baby to the woodcutter, and the two part ways. And that's the end of the film. For those used to modern movies, the narrative might feel unsatisfying since it never provides a clear answer about what really happened. Even by the end, we are left wondering which story is true and which is false. But that's exactly what makes Rashomon one of the greatest films of all time. The film's core message is that everyone is self-centered, driven by their own motivations. Even after death, people are still concerned with how they are perceived. The point of the story isn't about finding out which version is true. Instead, it's about understanding that every storyteller believes their version is the truth. That wraps up our discussion of the 1950 classic Rashomon. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and turn on notifications so you won't miss more reviews of classic films on this channel. See you next time on Classic Motion Stories. Cheers!